When adding a house meter to an existing electrical service, there are several factors to consider, including code compliance and safe wiring practices. Firstly, regarding the conduit run from the bottom center of the existing service to the 100 amp meter main, it is generally permissible to run conduit in this manner, provided it is done in accordance with the National Electrical Code, or NEC, and local codes. Secondly, the conduit needs to be properly sized and supported, and the conductors within the conduit must be appropriate for the amperage and voltage requirements of the service. Thirdly, the specific requirements for conduit type, burial depth if applicable, and support spacing can be found in NEC Articles 300. Firstly, concerning the connection inside the existing service, the method of connecting the new meter main will depend on the available space and the existing configuration of the service. Secondly, if there are no extra lugs available in the existing service to accommodate the new meter main feed, it may be possible to tap off the existing lugs prior to their attachment. Thirdly, this practice must be done in accordance with NEC Article 250 and NEC Article 310, ensuring that the tap conductors are properly sized and protected. Firstly, the tap conductors must have an opacity not less than the calculated load of the feeder or the overcurrent protection device from which they are tapped, as outlined in NEC 240.21. Secondly, it's important to use appropriately rated connectors for making the taps, ensuring a secure and reliable connection. Thirdly, the connection should be made within an approved enclosure. Firstly, NEC 310.16 provides guidance on conductor ampacity, taking into account factors such as conductor type, insulation rating, and ambient temperature. Secondly, NEC 250 covers grounding and bonding requirements, which are critical for electrical safety. Thirdly, ensure the grounding electrode system is adequate and properly connected to the service. Firstly, it is important to note that the NEC is updated regularly, so it's crucial to refer to the latest edition for the most current requirements. Secondly, local codes and regulations may also impose additional requirements or restrictions. Thirdly, it is always recommended to consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer to ensure that the installation complies with all applicable codes and regulations. Firstly, consider the working space around electrical equipment. Secondly, NEC 110.26 specifies the requirements for working space, including minimum clearances and access. Thirdly, ensure there is sufficient space to safely work on the equipment. Firstly, the overcurrent protection for the new meter main should be sized appropriately for the load it will serve. Secondly, NEC 240 provides guidance on overcurrent protection, including the selection of circuit breakers or fuses. Thirdly, the overcurrent protection device should be readily accessible and clearly labeled. Firstly, when running the conduit, ensure that it is properly supported and protected from physical damage. Secondly, NEC 352 and NEC 355 provide requirements for rigid polyvinyl chloride conduit and rigid metal conduit, respectively. Thirdly, the conduit should be installed in a neat and workmanlike manner. Firstly, the meter main should be installed in a location that is accessible for reading and maintenance. Secondly, the meter should be mounted securely and protected from the elements. Thirdly, the meter should be properly grounded and bonded. Firstly, when making connections, use appropriate tools and techniques to ensure a secure and reliable connection. Secondly, torque connectors to the manufacturer's specification. Thirdly, inspect all connections to ensure they are tight and free from corrosion. Firstly, label all conductors and equipment clearly and accurately. Secondly, this will help to prevent confusion and make it easier to troubleshoot problems in the future. Thirdly, NEC 110.22 requires that all electrical equipment be properly identified. Firstly, before energizing the new meter main, thoroughly inspect the installation to ensure that it is safe and compliant with all applicable codes and regulations. Secondly, test the system to verify that it is working properly. Thirdly, document the installation for future reference. Firstly, consider the voltage drop in the conductors. Secondly, NEC Chapter 9 provides guidance on voltage drop calculations. Thirdly, ensure that the conductors are sized appropriately to minimize voltage drop. Firstly, ensure that the grounding electrode system is adequate for the new meter main. Secondly, NEC 250 provides requirements for grounding electrode systems. Thirdly, the grounding electrode system should be properly connected to the service and the meter main. Firstly, consider the environmental conditions when selecting materials and equipment. Secondly, use materials and equipment that are suitable for the environment in which they will be installed. Thirdly, protect equipment from moisture, corrosion, and other environmental factors. Firstly, when working on electrical equipment, always follow safe work practices. Secondly, to energize the equipment before working on it. Thirdly, use appropriate personal protective equipment. Firstly, consider the future expansion of the electrical system. Secondly, design the installation to accommodate future loads. Thirdly, provide adequate space for additional equipment. Firstly, the neutral conductor must be properly sized and connected. Secondly, NEC 220 provides guidance on neutral conductor sizing. Thirdly, the neutral conductor must be grounded at the service. Firstly, the equipment grounding conductor must be properly sized and connected. Secondly, NEC 250 provides requirements for equipment grounding conductors. Thirdly, the equipment grounding conductor must be connected to the equipment grounding bus in the meter main. Firstly, the bonding of metal enclosures and equipment is essential for safety. Secondly, NEC 250 provides requirements for bonding. Thirdly, all metal enclosures and equipment must be properly bonded to the grounding system. Firstly, the use of surge protection devices can help to protect sensitive electronic equipment from damage. Secondly, surge protection devices should be installed at the service entrance and at individual circuits. Thirdly, NEC 280 provides requirements for surge protection devices. Firstly, consider the use of arc fault circuit interrupters, or SIs, and ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs, for additional safety. Secondly, SIs protect against arc faults, which can cause fires. Thirdly, GFCIs protect against ground faults, which can cause electric shock. Firstly, NEC 210.12 provides requirements for FSIs. Secondly, NEC 210.8 provides requirements for GFCIs. Firstly, the labeling of circuits is important for safety and convenience. Secondly, each circuit breaker or fuse should be clearly labeled to indicate the loads it serves. Thirdly, NEC 408.4 requires that circuits be properly labeled. Firstly, consider the aesthetics of the installation. Secondly, install equipment in a neat and organized manner. Thirdly, conceal wiring and conduit where possible. Firstly, comply with all applicable codes and regulations. Secondly, consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer to ensure that the installation is safe and compliant. Thirdly, obtain all necessary permits before starting work. Firstly, consider the energy efficiency of the installation. Secondly, use energy-efficient lighting and appliances. Thirdly, install insulation to reduce energy loss. Firstly, consider the use of renewable energy sources, such as solar panels or wind turbines. Secondly, renewable energy sources can help to reduce energy costs and environmental impact. Thirdly, NEC Article 690 provides requirements for solar photovoltaic systems. Firstly, ensure that all electrical work is performed by qualified personnel. Secondly, electrical work can be dangerous and should only be performed by those who are trained and experienced. Thirdly, never attempt to perform electrical work if you are not qualified. Firstly, consider the long-term maintenance of the electrical system. Secondly, perform regular inspections and maintenance to ensure that the system is operating safely and efficiently. Thirdly, keep records of all maintenance and repairs. Firstly, be aware of the potential hazards of electricity. Secondly, electricity can be deadly if not handled properly. Thirdly, always follow safe work practices and use appropriate personal protective equipment. Firstly, double-check all connections and wiring before energizing the system. Secondly, ensure that all connections are tight and secure. Thirdly, verify that the wiring is correct and that there are no loose or damaged wires. Firstly, after energizing the system, monitor it for any signs of problems. Secondly, listen for unusual noises and check for excessive heat. Thirdly, if you notice any problems, de-energize the system immediately and investigate the cause. Firstly, be prepared for emergencies. Secondly, know how to shut off the power in case of a fire or other emergency. Thirdly, keep a flashlight and other emergency supplies handy. Firstly, never overload circuits. Secondly, overloading circuits can cause fires and other hazards. Thirdly, make sure that the total load on each circuit does not exceed the capacity of the circuit breaker or fuse. Firstly, avoid using extension cords whenever possible. Secondly, extension cords are not intended for permanent use and can be a fire hazard. Thirdly, if you must use an extension cord, make sure it is properly sized for the load and that it is not damaged. Firstly, protect electrical cords from damage. Secondly, do not run cords under rugs or furniture, where they can be damaged. Thirdly, do not nail or staple cords to walls or floors. Firstly, keep electrical equipment clean and dry. Secondly, dust and moisture can cause electrical problems. Thirdly, clean electrical equipment regularly and protect it from moisture. Firstly, never touch electrical equipment with wet hands. Secondly, water is a good conductor of electricity and can cause electric shock. Thirdly, always dry your hands thoroughly before touching electrical equipment. Firstly, be careful when working near power lines. Secondly, power lines are very dangerous and can cause electrocution. Thirdly, stay at least 10 feet away from power lines. Firstly, call a qualified electrician if you have any electrical problems. Secondly, do not attempt to repair electrical problems yourself unless you are qualified to do so. Thirdly, electricity is dangerous and should only be handled by qualified personnel.